Did the narrative change because the relationship changed? Or did the facts change? Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of this straight game.
Blackjack. Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, click on the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get right into it as I usually do. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first bring this to you. I put out a video this morning, and I offered Choke No Joke a chance to debate the facts, right? A Choke No Joke disrespectfully declined. I'm not tripping on that. You know what I mean? I figured that he wouldn't accept the that's why I threw it out there. I knew he wouldn't accept the offer based on the fact that he know that he would be no match for me in any kind of factual debate involving the situation in regards to Tupac Shakur. And the reason why I say that, because over here on Straight Game TV, I don't do a whole bunch of speculating. I don't do a whole bunch of accusations that don't come with documentation, audio, or otherwise, right? And so I say that to say, in Choke's No Joke recent live, he began to throw out comments and things like that. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, let me share some facts with you, if I may. This Tupac situation, as you can see the title, the Choke No Joke fell out with Suge Knight. Now the Tupac story changed, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk some facts. Today, we're going to be addressing something that keeps resurfacing every few years like clockwork, right? The claim that Suge Knight has something to do with killing Tupac, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, Choke No Joke, a couple of months back, when he was, talking to Suge Knight and everything was good with Suge Knight, it was all of the praise and things were good, and Suge was they were ace coon booms and all of these other things that you possibly could think of, right? And so Choke No Joke has been making videos recently, and I say this in regards to the Tupac situation and creating false narratives, if you will, based on one's feelings towards somebody else, and then the changing of the facts of what's really real and the information that's actually out there, right? So you got to understand. So when I asked the question in the beginning, I said, well, did the facts change or did the relationship change? And so therefore, once the relationship changed, it changes what? It changes the facts, if you will, right? And so that being what that is, understand this, because one must understand what I'm about to do. This time, like I said, once again, the narrative is being pushed again after a public fallout. Well, on one side, I didn't really hear Suge say anything in regards to Choke No Joke on the Art of Dialogue when the Art of Dialogue was actually interviewing him. Like I said, and Suge Knight gave up a lot of vital information in regards to what he had never talked about before. That's why I always direct people, like I said, you want to go to the Art of Dialogue, he usually lets people, have their piece and let them, get their conversation on. And so, but like I said, once again, the alleged fallout from Choke No Joke side, right? Personal grievance and reframing, and then the beginning of the reframing of history, right? By Choke No Joke, because he's upset You know what I mean? One has every right to be upset for whatever reason, but one does not have the right to try to change facts as we know them to be and create a narrative involving speculation. No new documentation, no new facts have changed, right? No new introductory of any kind of facts. But in fact, Choke No Joke actually published a video, and this was my initial concern, right? In which I expressed to Choke No Joke, published a video. It was a fake video of the alleged Las Vegas shooting, ladies and gentlemen, right? Where the gunfire was coming from the front seat of the car, and like I said, once again, I had asked Choke No Joke, was it real? Where did he get it from? He couldn't tell me. You know what I mean? There's some things I won't talk about unless I'm forced to talk about them. But other than that, like I said, once again, I thought that me and Choke No Joke, had a, pretty communicated relationship. So, like I said, once I asked him that, he couldn't tell me. I was like, wow, and then I come to find out through an investigation that the video was fake and not accurate, right? And I was a bit disappointed. Because I expected a lot more from Choke No Joke, like I said, once again, but for whatever reason, he took that route in playing that tape and then basically claiming that, I got it. I got the tape, right? There's no other press conferences, nowhere. The tape would be major news around the world. Can you imagine if the actual Tupac assassination was caught on tape? You still got people's family members, Tupac's family members, his father, his sister, his cousins, his aunt. You still got people grieving. And so when somebody makes an accusation like that, you can only imagine if that was somebody in your family. You know what I mean? And somebody came out and be like, yeah, they got some kind of tape or something like that. Very disingenuous. But let me get into the changing of the narrative. Once Choke No Joke felt like he had been disenchanted or lied to by Suge Knight, allegedly, right? Then once he felt like that, then all of a sudden the Tupac story changed, right? And now it became this theory about Death Row allegedly having something to do with the death of Tupac Shakur. Ladies and gentlemen, for the people who understand and know, right? For the people who understand, as well as Choke No Joke, right? Suge Knight didn't have nothing to do with the death of Tupac Shakur. He didn't. Like I said, once again, and I'll say that from the perspective of simple motive, right? I just played the video this morning with Keefe D talking about On the Art of Dialogue. If you did not see the video I put out this morning, go check it out. And you're going to hear Art of Dialogue ask Keefe D a question, right? This is in and around the second interview. Keefe D, the first interview, Keefe D didn't really know Art of Dialogue. You know what I mean? So it was kind of laid back. He didn't really know what was what. The second interview, he kind of opened up. If you go over to Vlad, you see Keefe D on Vlad. When he talked to Vlad, he kind of opened up and he talked about his book and he talked about everything right now. So like I said, once again, Choke No Joke is now trying to defy reality, to defy facts, to defy police reports, to defy all of that. Now, I want to say this. I don't know whether Keefe D is innocent or guilty. I don't. I truly, honestly don't. What I do know is what he said. And that's all I've been going on is what Keefe D said, right? He said a lot of things. And then I tried to understand, from a layperson's perspective in regards to what may be accurate and what may not be accurate. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you this. The story does not change because somebody gets mad at somebody, right? The facts don't change because somebody has a falling out with somebody. And this is in dealing with the death of Tupac Shakur, point blank. That does not change because Choke No Joke was talking to somebody and he ain't talking to him no more. And now all of a sudden he want to say something different from what he was saying before, because he might not be getting along with somebody, right? So this episode is not about emotion. It's about loyalty, right? It's not about internet beef. I don't have beef. I have nothing but facts, right? And so when one comes and says something, then they invite the facts to be introduced into the conversation, right? This is YouTube. This is a public forum. So when Choke No Joke does that, then once again, I'm going to keep it A100 all the time, right? This is about what's probable, ladies and gentlemen. What's probable, what's documented, and what doesn't add up. Because when stories change after relationships fall apart, the first question you should ask is, did the facts change? Or did the motive change? Right? Once again, did the facts change or did the motive change? Right? And so by that being what that is, right? The falling out and the timing, right? You know, Choke No Joke made videos talking about him and Suge Knight falling out and Suge lied to him and all of these other things, right? That may be true. I don't know anything about that, right? But narratives shifting after the relationship soured. There's no new evidence that's been introduced involving the Tupac situation, right? No reinterpretation, right? And here's the red flag. Here's the red flag. The narrative didn't change because new evidence emerged implicating Suge Knight or implicating anybody else. There's no new evidence that emerged. Once again, you know, when you talk about something like this, new evidence comes into a case. Oh, we can go somewhere else with it, right? Right? But Keefe D said, look at the video I put up earlier today, right? So now, understanding that, the narrative did not change because new evidence emerged. It changed after a relationship or an alleged relationship collapsed. And that matters. Why does it matter? You gotta, instead, like I said, when you come and we talk about it, we're gonna talk intelligently about it, not emotionally, not be dismissive, not do petty name calling, right? Not do none of those things, right? Just deal with the actual facts of the matter. Not be biased on one side or the other. Just look at the video of what the person is saying. They don't need an echo chamber. They don't need a reiteration of what the person said, the person who was there in the situation involving Neckbone, right? Neckbone was there. I'm going to take for what he's saying. I don't have no, discrepancy as to what Neckbone's saying about what happened. He was in Las Vegas. I'm going to leave it at that. And evidently Tupac felt some way about Neckbone. He put him in a song. Point blank, period. Point blank, period. He felt some way about Neckbone, Buntry, Heron, all of them guys, and he put their name in the song, right? And so they were there. I'm not going to never try to challenge what they're saying because they were there. You feel me? But that's not who Choke No Joke is. He will take a video somebody did, and he does this all the time. But when somebody says something about him, he seems to get in his feelings. There's no feelings involved. These are only facts versus fiction. It's always been that way, right? And nobody is bigger than the program. You see, if you in these YouTube videos and things, and you talking about things that occurred back in the 90s, if you wasn't really around, if you wasn't in these LA streets, you wasn't really, you know what I mean? You wasn't at the nightclubs, the Bar One, the Century Club, Peanuts. You wasn't at none of these places and all of what was going on. You don't know, right? If you never hung out with Tupac, you didn't know Tupac, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? And dealing with the people who understand it, I respect their narrative. I respect their point of view. Like I said, especially dealing with people like Neckbone and stuff like that, because like I said, once again, he was there. My situation with Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is the fact that he wasn't there when it happened. And it was all of the lies that came after that. Once again, that's dealing with the same type of issue, right? Right? I want you to understand why this matters. Because if someone knew the truth all along, why wait years to say it? Right? So if Joke No Joke actually knew something about what he's saying after he changed the narrative, if he knew it for so long, why wait to say it? And why does the story only harden or gets more sinister after personal access, alignment, or benefit disappears? You got to understand what I'm saying. You know, when Choke No Joke, I guess, was talking to Suge and all of those things, right? Everything was all good. But then you got to ask, why does the story only harden or change or become more sinister, right? After the personal access to Suge, the alignment with Suge, or benefit disappears. You see what I'm saying? And that's the crazy part. It's like when relationships fall out. And I can understand how that can happen sometimes. You know, people feel what they feel. But when you're talking about the murder of Tupac Shakur, ladies and gentlemen, there is a current court case dealing with facts, some dealing with speculation, right? But more importantly, right, Choke No Joke is putting up false videos and saying that these videos are the videos from Las Vegas and the actual shooting. And it's not. It's simply not. Like I said, once again, that's not hate. That's not jealousy. That's not none of that, right? People always trying to deflect when you calling them out about the truth. That is actual facts. You put up a video and put up a video in question, was Tupac shooting caught on tape? And you know damn well the shooting wasn't caught on tape. That's crazy. What? I would never do nothing like that. But like I said, I'm not everybody and everybody not me, right? There's some things that you can respect and there's some things you must reject, right? False narratives and stuff. We know we talking about people who have been around for years. Like I said, Choke No Joke been around for years and he knows with a certainty that what he said about that video was not true. He knew before he even put it out. But evidently, he didn't care. So he'll come up with these narratives and things that are based on speculation, no new evidence, no new facts, right? And then begin to talk about defamation, right? And then begin to talk about defamation. One must be careful when they do that because that is a slippery slope. When people are insinuating that somebody had something to do with a murder that they didn't have nothing to do with from that perspective, if it is not made public by people who were involved. Example, when I say what I say in regards to Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., I am saying it based on public information, statements that Suge made. He was there. The facts, that's a fact, right? Statements that Frank Alexander made, that was a fact. The recordings that he made, that is a fact. You understand what I'm saying? It's different when you do it from that perspective. So there might not sometimes be a whole lot to say or reiterate in regards to that, right? You see what I'm saying? I said, when I say Reggie the Rat, I say that based on that's a fact. Reggie, Phil Carson, right? We at number 137 was a 137. We on number 137, 137 people watching. As we say this, right? He said he was a 137 informant, right? Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. came out and said that, you know, only people I tell on is what? Is crooked mayors and niggas that I don't like. So he admitted, it was a self-admitted thing. It wasn't nothing that I was implicating once again. So when one says something about somebody allegedly being involved in something that they can't prove or have not proven, and then begin to talk about defamation and somebody being sued about something, one must be careful because what he was talking about wasn't tantamount to defamation, right? But what he was saying in regards to Suge Knight could be construed as something in that area and making statements like that. Once again, you see what I mean? To know a little bit about the law. Choke, you know what I know about this law stuff, man. You know, and if you ever want to come out and tell people who I really am, right? And how I really helped you, right? Then come on out and tell them. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy. So if you want to tell them and you want to call names and you want to say things, You know what I mean? Come out, tell them how I really helped you. Tell them what I did for you. You see what I'm saying? See, that's the part that they won't say because they want to paint a picture of a narrative that's not true. You see what I'm saying? You know, so once again, like I said, you know, and as you have taken talking points and talking notes, right? You got, like I said, the motive biases, right? You know, the retrospective storytelling, right? The revisionism after the conflict, right? You know, they revise the story after somebody might have a conflict with somebody, and now all of a sudden, you know, it's this thing again. And it's like, come on, man. You know, that's not what the truth is. That's not based on any kind of factual information that is brought to the light. As a matter of fact, Keefe D's lawyer at one time was talking about trying to get Suge to come to court to testify on Keefe D's behalf. I don't think that was going to happen, but when he had Carl Arnold as his attorney, that was actually something that they talk about. Once again, dealing with the facts and the facts alone, right? Right? So, like I said, once again, you know, the Suge did it theory, right? What's missing? What's missing from the Suge Knight had something to do or kill Tupac? What's missing? I'm going to tell you what's missing, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of people, what's missing is there's no financial gain. There was no financial gain for Suge. I'm just going to give you some facts. There was no financial gain. And I'm going to tell you why there was no financial gain. When Suge Knight, when Tupac came to death row, right? You know, we know for a fact, because we did it on the Art of Dialogue. Go over on the Art of Dialogue and check out the video that we introduced to the world, proving that Tupac was actually not signed with Death Row. So in Tupac passing, Death Row didn't really, truly, factually, honestly, with integrity and paperwork to back it, gain anything from that. Tupac was actually, truthfully and factually, in regarding paperwork and legalese, more valuable to Death Row being alive and not being dead. And I'm talking specifically to Suge Knight, right? Think about it for a minute. They said there was what was that? A life insurance policy that turned out to be a lie too, right? There was none of those things. As a matter of fact, Warner Brothers gave Suge Knight a $4 million, you can look it up, ladies and gentlemen, a $4 million publishing deal, right? In and around the time that Tupac came around, a $4 million publishing deal, right? And so if you want to keep making money off of publishing, you have to what? You have to keep producing content, right? So with Tupac going, the biggest artist in the world at that particular time, there's no more content. And the content that's left, you know what I mean, is different. And the relationship that could transpire, remember, they were supposed to do a Death Row East. That's another way to produce content. You see Tupac talking about it, but there was no paperwork effectuated in regards to that. It was a theory at one time, right? You had Tupac ready to do his own label, right? You had him doing his own production company. You understand what I'm saying? So once again, there was no financial gain, right? No insurance payout to Suge Knight. People like, hey, they had a $30 million life insurance. No, there was no insurance payout. None of that, right? No communications, right? No cooperation or cooperating witnesses to say anything different, right? No charges on Suge Knight in 30 years. But what we did hear from Keefe D is, you know, when his situation popped off, we never knew anything about it until it came out on Murder Rap. And then was just basically regurgitated to us on the Diddy Reckoning situation. We must take that for the lay person who's listening to this information, ladies and gentlemen, and you seen Diddy Reckoning and you looked at it and you was like, for the first time, you really didn't know anything about the Tupac situation. And you heard that, you like, whoa. You understand what I'm saying? No matter who somebody insinuates or speculates that somebody said something, that they saw something, or saying that, you know, Greg Kading told them to say it or whatever. Okay. If he did, okay, cool. But that's not, you know, what was happening on the Art of Dialogue. I'm telling you, that's not what was happening on Vlad. When Keefe D was on there talking, he was talking as a man. He held up the book and he said, if you want the truth, don't be listening to nobody else. Here's the truth right here. That's why I went and bought the book, because I wasn't that knowledgeable as to what it was. I bought the book and I read the book, Keefe D's book, because I wanted to be able to, be knowledgeable of what I was talking about. Okay, cool. Listen to the interviews, taking in what he's saying, not trying to refute what he's saying. Yo, this is what he said. That's what that is. You know what I mean? Who am I to sit back and try to change the narrative as to what Keefe D said to say, oh, he lying. I don't know if he lying or not. It ain't my job to find out. He will face a jury of his peers, and that jury of his peers will tell him if they believe it or they don't. And the only reason why Keefe D got locked up was because Keefe D kept talking, and he wasn't supposed to. He got the deal of a lifetime, right? And chose to talk. That was his choice, right? And we must be held accountable for our choices. It doesn't matter who we are, where we from, who we know, and all of these other things, right? And we understand that it goes different for some people, you dig? Right. So now, all of those things, no financial gain, no insurance, no communications, no cooperating witnesses, no charges in 30 years. Every real murder case has 3 pillars, ladies and gentlemen. It has motive, it has means, and it has opportunity. I'm going to say it again. Motive, means, and opportunity, right? The Suge Knight theory collapses on motive. No policy, no payout, no benefit, right? Right? In fact, Suge basically, he lost, right? Suge lost his biggest artist, right? His leverage in the game to be able to make other power moves using the fact that what? Tupac just sold 5 million records in 4 months of a double album. You know what kind of leverage you can get? You know what kind of renegotiation leverage you would have in doing something like that? You understand what I'm saying? These are actual mathematical facts that you can go back and you can quantify this into something bigger, right? So he lost the leverage, his label, and the momentum, right? Snoop left after that, right? His protection in the industry. Because guess what? If you a cash cow and you making money in this industry, oh, you can best believe they're going to protect you. I'll refer to Diddy on that one. When Diddy was making a lot of money, that you couldn't say nothing, do nothing, and it what you understand what I'm saying? Suge was making a lot of money. Anything that happened, Snoop got the case, the situation, the murder case, beat that, and all of the other things that Tupac had the situation, boom, went to jail, boom, got the appeal, able to get out. You understand what I'm saying? All of those things. These are quantifiable facts, ladies and gentlemen. This is not speculation. This is not, well, who would do something like that? You can't relate your feelings and how you would react to a situation and then superimpose that on somebody else. It don't work like that. Life doesn't work like that, even though people would think that it does. Once again, right? And to be perfectly honest, everything that I mentioned, that's not gain. That's destruction. The whole death row situation was destroyed at that particular time. Right or wrong. If I'm right or wrong in the chat, think about it. I'm just, just giving these facts. Like I said, once again, one can talk about a narrative and make up these things and what Neckbone's saying and how it's not right with what they think. You know what I mean? But you weren't there. He was there. And the man didn't speak for 30 years. You know what I mean? Now he's speaking all of a sudden, joke, no better than Neckbone, who was there. That's crazy. Or the speculation that he wants to give out in regards to that, right? Right? Who actually benefited from the story changing, ladies and gentlemen? I'm talking about the narrative that Choke No Joke is now trying to push out. Who actually benefits from the narrative change, right? Well, let's deal with the first off, the culprit would be media monetization, right? Right? Media monetization, YouTube incentive structure, right? And which is great. But once again, you can go by those things, but when credibility is on the line, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Unless you're making serious investments, you know what I mean? You really, planning on, but like I said, for the most part, if YouTube incentive, okay, yeah, cool. But your credibility is on the line. People will start vacating the premises because they find that one is being emotional and not factual. One is being biased and not honest. You understand what I'm saying? And then you got the shock value of the thing. The shock value narrative, outperform the truth sometimes, right? But let's talk real talk, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk real talk. Let's talk this straight game. Suge did it. It's a click narrative. It's a click narrative. It doesn't require evidence. It requires emotion, ladies and gentlemen. Suge did it. It does not require evidence. It requires emotion. And the internet doesn't reward accuracy. It rewards outrage. I get it. But like I said, once the outrage or the whatever subsides, you got to contrast that with what? Consistent timelines, recorded statements, legal filings, court positions. And then when people get up on game and they start to really find out the truth and what's being said, then they look back at you with the side eye. Like this dude over here trolling, man. He trolling everything somebody say. Every time somebody say something, he got a video to talk about it. He trolling. I get it. I understand it. You know what I mean? Some people operate in that space, and it may benefit some people, right? Right? But what the paperwork actually shows, ladies and gentlemen, what the paperwork actually shows, contradictions by others, right? This you don't even have to get into it. You could just go back and look at the facts, right? Shifting testimony over time. You see what I'm saying? And I'm talking about in relationship to the murder of Tupac Shakur. Contradictions by others, meaning in the Keefe D situation, even the contradictions in some of the things that he said in regards to that, right? Shifting testimony over time. I wasn't in Vegas. You know what I mean? And so on and so forth. Now we're having new attorneys, and they're gonna, find out the angle that they're gonna take, right? Monetized confessions, proffer agreements, the proffer deal, all of that. Media storytelling versus legal reality, right? Ladies and gentlemen, courts when you go to court, they don't deal in vibes. Who you vibing with, they don't deal in vibes and who you vibing with and who they deal in facts. They dealing with the evidence, right? And that's why one must be careful about the things that they saying about people and saying, making these assertions, right? And then talking about defaming people. You see what I'm saying? If you can't prove it and you don't know it to be true, then don't really truly honestly say it, right? Because like I said, or if you do know an alternative truth and then you stating something where you say, like I said, that's why Chokes his favorite word is allegedly, right? But you 1 minute you mad at Suge Knight and now the whole story changes. When everything was cool, it was he was shouting out at one time. He was shouting out that Diddy had something to do with it, right? Then you see the 360 on the Diddy move. It was a 360 on that, right? Like I said, I know what Keefe D said. That's basically it. I don't know whether Diddy did anything. You know what I mean? I know what Keefe D said. And Keefe D implicating himself and implicating others, right? That's all I know. You know what I mean? That's all I know. Now, like I said, once again, I'm not going to try to peer behind the veil and be like, you know what? Why would they do that? He did this. No, that's all speculative based on the factual evidence that's been shown to be proven through statements, audio, video, and otherwise. So why would one take and make or introduce a fake video of the murder of Tupac Shakur, put it on the internet like it's the real, true, authentic article? Right? One loses credibility immediately when they do that, especially when people find out, like, hold on, like, what's this? Hold on. Like, and they come to know you as somebody choke, no joke, right? That would be in the reverse. That would be like, yo, he got to be joking. You see what I'm saying? From that perspective. So like I said, once again, I'm only going to deal with the facts. And so when I ask Choke No Joke, hey, come on, let's debate this, right? I'm coming from a place of, actual conversation where people can gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding about what it is that we talking about, right? But his response was, no, go suck on something, and the disrespect begins, right? But I'm not gonna stoop that low. I'm a little bit smarter than that. I ain't dealing with my emotions. I'm dealing with these facts, man. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I said, once again, that goes to show me that once again, that when he went there, that means he know that he can't win the argument. He know that he's not being honest. He know that he's not being factual. He know that the video wasn't real, right? And the conversation that I had with him, right? He know that he wasn't being keeping it 100, despite all of the things and the posturing and all of that old stuff. Like I said, once again, that's all I needed to know. I don't need to deal with nobody who got manufactured stories. You over there, man, you like building Ford cars. You got a manufacturing plant. And it's like, I'm going to manufacture this story and I'm going to put this out. You know what I mean? Right? Like I said, once again, when you deal with the facts, you don't need no alibi. It's just as simple as that, right? The courts, like I said, once again, the courts don't deal in vibes. They deal in what? Documents, timelines, recorded statement, and consistency. And consistency is the one thing missing from the people pushing this narrative today. Consistency. One must be consistent. You know what I mean? Show me where I'm not consistent. I'm gonna take a look at it. Like, yeah, But like I said, I don't want to get your attention. I don't need your subscribing to my channel because I need you to think that I'm telling you something. Or I know something. Or I got something that don't nobody else got that turns out not to be real. I don't need you to do that. You know what I mean? What does that mean? That means you liking me for something fake. I don't want you to like me for something fake. I need you to like me because I'm keeping it real. Even when it ain't the most popular thing. Like I say, at least you know what you gonna get. I'd rather know what I'm gonna get from a person. Even if it ain't something that I agree with all the time. I'm like, you know what? I fuck with you because you being honest, man. You know what I mean? You ain't gonna win it all the time. It don't mean that all the time. You know what I mean? Some of us in our 50s and whatever. Come on, man. We ain't living like that. That's crazy. You know what I mean? This story won't die. Like I said, and why the Tupac thing the story won't die because it's useful, right? It gives people an enemy. You see what I'm saying? A villain, a shortcut explanation. And what I mean by that is the Suge Knight theory, right? And I speak on that because of some of the things that Suge Knight has, told us. Suge Knight, listen to me. A couple of months back, he was doing the thing with Dave Mays, right? And when he was doing the thing with Dave Mays, Suge Knight came out and admitted. And he admitted that Tupac wasn't signed to Death Row. Now, we had did the video on the Art of Dialogue probably like, I would say a year or 2 years before. And telling everybody. Now, we faced a lot of backlash. And people, oh man, them documents, they got fake and all of this, that, and the other. Well, I knew they wasn't fake. Like I said, once again, but people being trollish and doing the things that they do came from that angle. But guess what? Suge came out and spoke about it not too long ago and basically confirmed what the document said. Not what I said. It wasn't about me. I never made it about me. I made it about the documentation that I was presenting. And Suge Knight came out and confirmed that Tupac wasn't signed to Death Row. And he didn't have a contract on Tupac. He basically said the internet Interscope gave him Tupac's contract. That's what he said. I was like, oh, okay. And that's what I thought it was. I'm like, there was no paperwork or nothing that changed hands from Interscope from Interscope to Death Row that would allow that transition to happen. It's just a fact, right? Like I said, so the story won't die because it's useful. It gives people an enemy, somebody they hate, a villain, a shortcut explanation, right? But shortcuts don't equal the truth, ladies and gentlemen. They don't. They don't, right? And truth doesn't need a rebranding every 5 years or every 5 YouTube videos or 10 YouTube videos, right? Just stay on point. Stay on point, right? Like I said over here, Straight Game TV, we're not protecting nobody. We protecting the facts, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about like I said, I'm not aligned with, nobody like that from that perspective. When we talk about protecting the facts, and the facts don't change because your friendship ends. right? If you got documents, bring them, right? If you got documents, bring them. If you got evidence, show it. But if all you got is a new story after a fallout or after the relationship failed, right? That's not justice. That's narrative warfare, right? That's somebody who's trying to create a narrative warfare. Because, Keefe D them said they put the gun under the tire, right? So how did it get to Corey Edwards, right? Those two situations are unrelated. Why would Choke No Joke try to even make a story about that when he knows for a fact that those situations are unrelated, right? The gun that they found at Corey Edwards' house, they checked it for ballistics in Vegas. It didn't match up. You see what I'm saying? So why even try to create a narrative around that when you know it ain't true? Because the evidence and the information is already out there, right? That's the part I'm talking about. That's the disingenuous part about this, right? And so, like I said, once again, when I asked the debate, hey, like I said, we can have a healthy debate, but like I said, now I understand that Choke No Joke ain't dealing in no truth, ain't dealing in no facts, right? And it's dealing with speculation and innuendo and the manufacturing of stories and narratives. I get it. I got it now. You know what I mean? So like I said, after this video, I won't be saying anything else regarding Choke No Joke, but I had to bring this to the forefront because it's very important. You see what I'm saying? Because I know what I did, right? I know the part that I played, right? You understand what I'm saying? And Choke No Joke know the part that I played. You see what I'm saying? So there would be no jealousy, no hate, or anything like that. I don't deal with that. I don't deal with my emotions on my sleeve like that. Real men handle their business and do what they need to do when they need to do it. Other than that, like I said, it's all good. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate y'all coming through, but I had to bring this to your attention. Like I said, once again, no more fake videos about Tupac, right? Keep it 100. Like I said, his sister and them, his father, his cousins, his family, they still going through that. They still, somebody see the video, send the video to their family members. Oh, you know what? I just seen the video, Tupac shooting. It's on tape. Where you get it from? Choke No Joke channel. And they look at it and they like, you don't think that re-traumatizes them? Thinking that might be real? But like I said, when people only thinking about clicks and views, right? They get the game twisted. This is, like I said, sometimes one must show restraint and be like, hey, you know what? I ain't gonna do that. That's not what this about. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, when Choke put that video up, it kind of hit me. I'm like, hold on, man. Where you get that from? I can't tell you. What you mean you can't tell me? As if it came from an FBI, CIA source and then to come to find out it came from some documentary that somebody recreated with AI. I was sadly disappointed, man. I was sadly disappointed, right? Knowing I had helped this brother. You feel me? I'm like, damn, that's what you know what I mean? So once again, when people try to change a narrative and paint other people as villains, right? The first person that begins to talk about stuff like that, I'm always leery. I'm like, damn, it was just all good. Now, they trying to get in front of the narrative. You know what I mean? Trying to get in front of it. When you living and you speaking truth, you ain't got to get in front of nothing. It is what it is. It's just that simple. So like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for coming through. I felt like this was very necessary. And like I said, not a diss to Choke No Joke, but just dealing with the straight up facts of the situation, right? The straight up facts. And I'll say this, Choke No Joke get on the internet every day and put somebody's name in his title. Put somebody different name. If it's Dame Dash, it's Suge Knight, if it's, Ray J, if it's this person, that person. And so the last person that should be calling anybody any kind of trolls, it should be Choke No Joke, right? You'll never see me speak on certain things that I can't accurately speak on. But this thing here, I can speak on it. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, man. And like I said, what's good? What's good? Trillin, what's good? Who else? Miss Ashley Matthews. Hey, Ashley, you had me tripping out. I was looking at your comments, right? I ain't gonna say it, but I just want to let you know you had me tripping out. I was like, what? Right. Shout out. We got Choke No Jokers up in the building, y'all. See, I'm gonna give you some acknowledgement. Choke, would you like to go live and debate? Let's go live and debate, ladies and gentlemen. Say hi to Choke No Joke up in the chat. Say hi to Choke No Joke. He's up in here. Choke, you want this? You want some of this truth, man? All I was trying to do speculation. You basically, Choke is now taking my words that I just was talking to him about, and now he's over here using my words. I use that. You speculating. Everything I just said was facts. Everything I just said was facts. Come on, Choke. Let's get online and debate it out, man. Let's debate it out. You come with your set of facts and all of the things that you're saying, and I'll come with the facts that back with documentation, information, audio, and so on and so forth. But do us a favor, Choke. Do us a favor. Stay away from those internet AI videos, right? That claim to show the murder of Tupac Shakur. And all of the other speculative, misleading things that come across with that. Because when you do that, then you give somebody a right to come back at you and have a conversation. I like I said, I appreciate, like I said, once again, he said, ladies and gentlemen, Choke No Joke is in the chat right now saying people play. He said, listen to me. And I want you to understand, he's saying people played that video over a year ago. I said Choke No Joke and others, right? He's saying people played the video. Once again, Choke, I need you to understand that there is no video that exists, and you knew that the video didn't exist and the video was fake. So you're basically saying now, because other people played it, you played it. And so you shouldn't be held accountable for what you did. I should go now and focus on the other people. No, that's a diversionary tactic. I'm dealing with the facts, and I talk to you, right? Right? You see what I'm saying? So once again, one must understand that. But Choke, like I said, I respectfully invite you to debate these facts. And we know for a fact that the video is fake. You do know that now, correct? Choke No Joke is in the building, y'all. I'm trying to, like I said, once again, when like I said, when you fell out with Suge, the Tupac story changed, right? You was one minute you were saying that Diddy was responsible and blase blah, right? Then once you felt like Suge, when you put out the video talking about Suge lied to me, then you flipped it, right? And say, you know what? I'm no longer saying that no more. This is what I'm saying this week. Come on. Right? The truth don't change, people's feelings do. Absolutely. Who's that? DJ 187. It's Choke. It's already proven that it's fake. The video is fake. It doesn't exist. If the video wasn't fake, then you would see people, ABC, NBC, CNN, the BBC News. You would see all of these networks covering it. You said it was out over a year ago, correct? Choke, you lost that argument. You put out a fake video and was like, yo, I got it. Hold on. This goes against what you just said. Let me give you some facts, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, click the like button, click the share button, because we got Choke No Joke up in the house. He really want to have some of this this debate up in here. Check this out. Choke No Joke just said up in the chat that other people played it a year before, right? Right? But he just played it recently. Right? So Now he's asking me to prove whether it's fake or not. What? Why would I have to do that? You played the video, Choke. Choke, no joke, can't handle the debate smoke. Now he got to go. He got to go. Hey, Trillin, tell him again, Trillin. Ain't no need to lie. The information is out there. It's straight game TV. Choke, no joke, has folded, ladies and gentlemen. He said he's gone. He don't want to debate. Like I said, he telling me to prove that the video is fake when he knows that the video is fake. Once again, a diversionary tactic, right? Absolutely, YG. I thought it was a never before seen video. And then he said, listen to me. Once again, see, hey, YG, you caught him, right? You see what I'm saying? So now, once again, check this out. In him saying that, never before seen video, right? And then he, on the video, he was like, I got it. Like, you know, like he got it, nobody had it. And then when I talked to him and I asked him, like, yo, where you get that from? He was like, I can't tell you. You can't tell me? But now you gonna say people was playing it a whole year ago? The consistency, the hypocrisy. And that's the reason why I wanted to debate, ladies and gentlemen, for the people thinking that I was, you know, I'm hating or something. No, there's no hate involved. If you come in with a set of facts, please come with the facts, right? Don't mislead the people. You got a lot of people sitting back, you know, people who love Tupac, like I said, family members, all of that, and just want to be able to, because they work in their daily life and they looking at us and saying, okay, cool. If I'm going to give somebody my ear, at least don't lie to me. You know what I mean? And like I said, you might not agree with everything I say, but the one thing you ain't never going to be able to say about me is that I lied to you, right? Oh, Choke, no joke is back, ladies and gentlemen. He ain't gone nowhere. Choke, we need you to understand what you just said. You claimed in your video that the video, I got it. Like it was a world premiere and nobody else had it. But you just made the comment and saying what? That the people were playing it a year before. So you wasn't the first person with it. You were trying to make it seem like you were the first person with it. So in fact, what you're admitting is that you don't even know that it's real. But we've already done the investigation to prove that the video is fake. We don't have to go and do any kind of other work involving that. We don't have to do any other kind of work. What you have to do is apologize to your folks and saying, you know what? I put out a video that I thought was real and it turned out to be fake, right? Because once again, credibility is everything, especially in this YouTube space. It's everything, you know? And like I said, when we come in with something, I want to sit down and have that debate with you. And you can prove to the world that what Delray saying is some bullshit. Yeah, he lying. He coming up with something, but you can't do it. Right? You can't do it. Like I said, once again, let me give you this, Choke. You said what? On your video, you talked about how you believe, listen, I'm gonna tell you the contradictions that I'm gonna point out a major contradiction. Choke, no joke, pointed out that Keefe D talked about how what happened after the shooting and them going back to the carriage house, right? And they parked the Cadillac in the parking lot. He said they put the gun up on the tire, right? Choke, no joke, talked about that. And he believed, listen, he believed all of that and what Keefe D said, enough to try to relate it to the Corey Edwards situation when the gun was found in the backyard. Now, this is what I'm talking about how Choke, no joke, cherry picks his facts. Listen. So if you believe what Keefe D said about the carriage house and the gun on the tire, right? How do you not believe everything else he's saying? Right? See, that's that selective cherry picking of what I want to believe and what I want to create a narrative behind and what I want people to hear me say, right? Versus what the actual facts are, right? Choke, no joke, knows about the Corey Edwards, his police report in dealing with what he had said. and that he was in Vegas, that they were sitting over there in the MGM by the bar and all of that. Choke No Joke knows that because I sent it to him. Tell him, Choke. Choke, didn't I send you that? Choke, didn't I send you that? I sent you that. Guess what he did? I don't want to look at that. I don't want to see that shit. Huh? So basically what you telling me is you don't want the facts to be entered into your mind because now you can't go out there honestly and speak the things you speaking. I get it. What Choke say? He say, if it's fake, then who created it? Well, since you presented it to the world, you could tell us that. Like I said, once again, if you getting behind it, the video is fake. It's fake. You tell us, where did it originate? I didn't put out the video, you did. You put out a fake video. You put out a fake video, right? Of the alleged Tupac shooting, and you knew it was fake, Choke. You just didn't expect nobody to say anything about it because you Choke No Joke. You see what I'm saying? And like I said, all due respect, I want you to show us where you got it from. Where did you get it from, Choke? Because you presented it to the world. Can you tell us that? Can you tell us where you got the video from? Absolutely, Tyrell. Absolutely, Tyrell James. You right. Borat in the building. Who else? Leanne in the building. And everybody who's not in the chat, like I said, if you have not joined Straight Game TV, please do. I'm waiting for Choke No Joke to tell us where he got the video from. Because now, once again, you see the psychological gymnastics he's trying to play. Prove that it's fake. No, it's not for us to prove. You listen. I'm gonna give you some game about this law thing, Choke. You have the burden of proof. You have the burden of proof. You presented it. You got to presume. You got to authenticate what this actually is. He can't authenticate it. Now he calling me Delroy. Right. New York State of Mind say, I think it's G14 classified. Choke, is it G14 classified? He said Reggie paid him. Miss Matthews up on game. She know what time it is. Come on, man. Where did Choke go? Choke, where you go at? Where you go at, Choke? Choke No Joke has left the scene, ladies and gentlemen. Choke. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad that Choke came in. Like I said, I give him credit for having the integrity to come in and chime in with the chat. But more importantly, like I said, once again, so that everybody knows where I was coming from with this situation. You know, I wasn't coming from a place of hate. You know, I wasn't coming from a place of jealousy. You know, I wasn't coming from a place of being disgruntled. I'm simply talking about the facts involving this situation. And Choke No Joke could not rise to the occasion, ladies and gentlemen. He couldn't rise to the occasion. He took one of the Art of Dialogue videos and took it out of context. The one that I played earlier today with the video I released this morning, right? Gives you the full context of what it is. Keefe D's first interview with the Art of Dialogue versus the second interview versus the third interview. I think Art of Dialogue did like 5 or 6 interviews with Keefe D. Right? And like I said, and now that we've gotten to where we needed to be, right? Choke No Joke has left the building, ladies and gentlemen. More importantly, what I want to do is I want to thank each and everybody for coming and chiming in, listening. And like I said, if you have not joined Straight Game TV, please do. Once again, please do. And like I said, the narrative with Choke No Joke involving Suge Knight changed when Choke No Joke alleged that Suge Knight lied to him. Once that happened, the whole story changed. He was talking about Diddy. He believed that Diddy had something to do with it before. And then once the situation with him and Suge changed, he flipped it back to, you know, Death Row and them having something to do with the death of Tupac Shakur. And no facts, no new information, just the fact that he felt whatever he felt in regards to Suge Knight allegedly lying to him. And it's just as simple as that. It's simple as that. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Thank you again. And you see right here, right now, Choke No Joke was put under the seriousness of the microscope of wanting to come and, you want some of this debate, you want some of these facts. He can't do nothing with the facts. The reason why, he manufactures narratives and comes out and just says anything. And like I said, people, it's speculative. He talk about Neckbone. He don't know Neckbone. Neckbone was there in Vegas. Tupac said Neckbone name in the song, right? Evidently, Tupac felt some kind of way about who he was dealing with at that time. Even though it didn't end most favorable to him, it was what it was, because Tupac was loyal. If he felt like you were loyal to him, he was loyal to you. You know what I mean? And that can't be, and that's a very rare thing. Like I said, once again, even when somebody has a little bit of disenchantment, right? You know what? We might be at odds right now, but I'm not going to sit here and create no lies and tell no lies about nobody. You see what I'm saying? You always keep it 100 because there's always room to repair. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, once again, I appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Your boy Delray, straight gang.
Life is like those cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.